Join Chewie and I as we learn about Star Wars 5th Edition. Today, I want to learn about the Fighter class. If you know Dungeons & Dragons and you know the Fighter class, then you already know this class. It's pretty much a direct translation of the Fighter class, even with Action Surge in there as is. As you would expect, this class is about frontline fighting. You are going to be going in and your goal is to take on the bad guys. From a stats perspective, strength is an obvious one to go with, though you could go with dexterity and focus on ranged blasters or finesse weapons instead. Secondary, you're going to want constitution because you're going to need a lot of hit points. All the usuals are here. You got your fighting style, your second wind, your action surge, and a bunch of others that map up very well to your typical fighter class. What I would say was that if you are playing in a Star Wars setting, whereas a fighter in a typical D&D campaign, you'd think of like sword and shield and armor. In a Star Wars campaign, a lot of people use blasters instead. You might not be as likely to find someone running around with a sword and shield. So that you might have a different kind of play as to how you want to build up your character to go into that style. Like the other class, there are a bunch of specializations in your archetypes that you can go and take a look at. This is a list here. Now, even though I just talked about how there's not a bunch of sword and shield stuff going on, they do have a Blade Master specialist and a shield specialist to get you that kind of a feel to match up to what you're used to. That being said, the one that jumped out of me was the heavy weapons specialist. I can just imagine the size of weapons that you would have on this type of a character and kind of the RP that would go along with it. The My Little Friend Says Hello there is kind of amusing in that you are just so imposing with your weaponry that you get to be better at intimidation. If you just want to get a damage bonus, the assault specialist seems to be pretty good for that, although it doesn't have a lot of flavor to it. It's just basically you shoot well. If you want to go more complex, the tactical specialist seems to be one where you can kind of play with the field a little bit more and use combat superiority and things like that. Lots of people love the fighter class, all those extra attacks and stuff. I can see this being a very useful class if you're running in a campaign that is very combat heavy. However, if you're in more of a narrative campaign, there may be not as much flavor in this one as maybe one of the other classes. Next up is a class that looks like it could be very interesting, especially with droids, the Engineer.